Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining NQA seminar on transferring your certification. I'm just going to give it another minute, just because it's only just gone 2 o'clock. I know some people might be in meetings, reminders going off, so I'll give it another minute for anyone else to join, and then we'll get started. Good afternoon again. If anyone has only just joined, thank you for joining today's presentation or webinar on transferring your certification to NQA. My name is David Quinn. I'm a Business Development Manager here at NQA, and I'm going to run through the process with you, NQA's approach, talk a little bit about myself, other things NQA can offer, and any questions at the end if you have any. So a little bit about myself. I'm a business development manager at NQA. I've worked in certification for a number of years now, starting in client service teams and planning teams, which is a steep learning curve. And then I've worked my way through into commercial roles, into the one that I am in today with NQA. I have experience with other certification bodies as well, so I've got a sort of varied history on the different processes that people use. But essentially, that's a little bit on my background. Currently at NQA, my role involves doing things like this, typically dealing with larger clients, headcounts over, say, 100 staff, and basically everything else in between. In terms of my knowledge, I'm not an auditor. However, I've completed my lead auditor qualification in 9001. I've got a couple of foundation courses as well, looking at 14, 45, and 27. And I've recently took the leap into the sustainability world and completed my PAS 2060 certification with NQA. I don't profess to be an auditor. However, I feel like I've got a general grip on certification and management systems. And so in the webinar today, we'll run through the transfer process. It'll take around about 30 minutes. There will be time for questions. If there should be a little chat box if anyone wants to put any questions in there. I'll run through them at the end if that's okay, just so we can get through the slides first. The webinar is recorded, so it will be circulated. So if there's any members of your team that wanted to join and couldn't, it will be sent out, so you can look at this again in the future. So in terms of the actual content of the webinar today, we'll look at reasons for potentially transferring a certificate. NQA's 6-step process, we try and keep it as simple as possible, and we'll run through that with you. The time and cost involved, why you should choose NQA ultimately, and as I said, we will have time for some questions at the end if anyone wants to throw anything in the chat box. So some of the main reasons that we find for people wanting to move or transfer their certification, you often find poor levels of customer service. Fragmented communication probably goes hand in hand with that. There are some certification bodies that feel like you have to jump through many hoops to get a simple query a lot of the time. Inconsistent assessors and auditors. Again, some certification bodies rely heavily on, say, subcontracted auditors, which potentially means you're having to change auditor year after year, re-explain your business, feel like you're starting from the beginning. It can cause frustration. We see that quite a bit. Problematic approach to certification could be one of many things. We see some certification cycles that are running sort of every 6 months. If you've got an integrated management system, your certification body is not necessarily auditing that as integrated. Therefore, you're having, if you've say got 9, 14, and 45,001, you may be having a 9,001 audit in January, 14,000 in March, 45,000 in July. Is there a more streamlined solution to that? We certainly think so in terms of an integrated approach, and we can run through those solutions for you. And then lastly, in terms of service, it'd be probably lack of value for money. Are you getting what you're paying for? Are you paying too much? Are you paying too little? Are you not getting the support you need? Some people are happy with just a certificate on the wall, visited once a year annually. That's all they need. If you're needing training, more support, flexibility, movements, sometimes you can find that certification bodies are a little bit rigid with that. Obviously, it causes you frustration. We don't always see, or certification bodies don't always see, I suppose, the level of movement you guys have to do behind the scenes, taking people away from their day-to-day jobs to be interviewed by our auditors. So we try and be as flexible as possible. On a flip side of that, we deal with a lot of people that come up for retenders or tendering for certification. Is it a contractual requirement from your higher ups? Public sector, large multi-site, have you added organizations or sites, should I say, to your certification? Is it difficult for your certification body to help manage that for you? Organizational changes, sometimes people come in, want to do a refresh, pressure to use certain providers. Some people don't always know that there's other providers out there in terms of certification and different approaches that can be taken. And acquisition and parent pressure. Obviously, when change happens, new people come in. I've been through it myself at a certification body. It's always an unsure time. Are you being pressured to move certification? I suppose what you guys want to hear today is basically NQA's approach and how we can help with those. So we feel we have competitive pricing. In terms of pricing, it's always going to be different for each client because you're going to have different needs and different visit patterns dependent on your headcount, sites, and risk level. However, we have all-inclusive fees, so that's inclusive of travel fees to UK and Ireland sites. We don't charge management fees or logo fees or any extra fees you may have seen or experienced. And we feel we have a really competitive pricing structure out there. Extensive portfolio of auditors and auditors that are trained to deliver your audits. So I mentioned before that some certification bodies rely heavily on subcontracted auditors. We do have a pool of subcontracted auditors. However, we have around about 90 full-time auditors that are trained by NQA. The majority of them auditors are what we call triple badged, where they have the competence to audit against 9, 14, and 45,001, which you find are your core standards. We hire from industry with experience, so you're having people that come into your business have an understanding of what you're carrying out. An advantage of having such a large pool of NQA auditors to pick from, the aim is that we give you that auditor on a regular basis. You're not having to then describe your business every year. You're not dealing with someone new. It enables you to build that relationship, and that's kind of what we try and aim for as well with that auditor. And I've touched on it there with how the majority are triple badged. We aim to do integrated management system audits. It's much simpler for you as a client, and it just gives you a better level of service. If you've got multiple standards and you're being audited at different times, it makes sense to merge them, especially if you've got an internal integrated system. You'll often find it's a reduction of time for you, reduction of time on site. Usually that means a reduction of cost. We can do that. Even if you have standards at the moment that are standalone and you wanted to transfer, we can run through a process of how we do a transfer and then integrate them in the future for you. Again, we're able to take on large clients. So if you've got multiple sites, you've got UK or worldwide coverage, we can support you with that. Expert assessors and auditors. Again, I've touched on that, how we hire from industry. We make sure people's have relevant qualifications and background. You're not going to be given an auditor that's, say, done an e-learning course and then been sent out onto the field. We want to make sure you're getting service from the auditor who's doing your audit for you. And we stick with you along the way. Our average client certification relationship is around about 10 years. So people seem to stick with us, and we help you as well as you grow. So if your business grows, you bring on new people, new sites, or you need new training, we can support you with that. And we're keen to do that as well. We're keen to be seen as a partner rather than just a tick box exercise for you. So how does the transfer process work? So with ourselves, the initial very first stage would be the inquiry. That can come through the phone line to the sales team, through our website, or an email. There will be contact details at the end, and obviously this will be emailed out, so you'll get those contact details. But once you make that initial inquiry, you'll come through to either myself or one of my colleagues. We're all very experienced in terms of the transfer process. We can run through with you how that works and the information that we need. Typically, we will need your latest ISO certificate, your last surveillance report, and your last recertification report as a minimum. If you have all three reports of the latest ones on your cycle that you can send, that's brilliant. But as a minimum, we typically need your last recert or reassessment, some people call them, and your last surveillance report. Reason being is we just need to do a review of them. We need to make sure that you've got no open non-conformances, you're not in suspension as well. When we do the transfer, I describe it as a lift and shift sort of process. So there's a continuation of your current cycle that you're on. Your audit start date will stay the same. Your audit expiry date will stay the same. Your duration, because we typically use the same mandatory guidance, or we have to use the same mandatory guidance, sorry, as a UCAS certification body, should roughly stay the same as well. The reason I say roughly is because we all interpret information slightly differently. If we can try and do something that may reduce your duration, we'd certainly look to do that for you. But essentially, once we have that, we would then look to quote you for your next audit. Just to touch on the information that we ask for, because I mentioned the non-conformances. If you have 0 non-conformances open, that's brilliant. The transfer will be straightforward. If you have open minor non-conformances or minor non-conformances that were raised at the last audit, if you have a correction action plan that's being reviewed, we just need to take that into consideration as well. So if you've got any open, we may ask for them, and I'll build on why we do that in a moment. As I said, audit duration should roughly be the same as what you're currently on as we take hold of the cycle. So if you've just had your surveillance audit, we'd look to book in the following surveillance. And again, if you were due a recertification, we'd look to book the recertification audit. As I mentioned, we all use the same mandatory guidance. We have to as a UCAS accreditation body. So the duration calculations and methodology that we use is the same. However, we all interpret information slightly differently. So if there's an opportunity to maybe shave off a day, we can certainly do that for you. What will then happen is we'll put together the visit plan for the next 3 years. So you'll know your surveillance recert, or surveillance recert surveillance, whatever you are in the cycle, will work out the following 3 years. So you've got that future plan in mind, and we'll put that onto the quotation for you. Once we send that through, if you're happy with that, that just needs to be signed and returned to ourselves. We then process the application on your behalf for you, which will then go to our internal team that will action the actual transfer. When I mentioned the non-conformances before, this is where it has an effect on the process. If you've got no non-conformances open, brilliant. What we would then do is call a remote transfer audit. This typically takes a couple of hours to maybe half a day with an auditor on a Teams call. You don't need to send them really anything. A lot of the time, they will have already made contact with you. We'll have run through all the information that they need. We just have to do this. It's a mandatory step that every UCAS certification body needs to do upon a transfer request. It's just to confirm that your certificate is how you said it is, that it's not in suspension, your expiry date hasn't gone over, you've been audited within the last 12 months, just the basic information like that. If you have a lot of open non-conformances or minor non-conformances, there is a chance we may need to do an on-site audit just to review and make sure they've been closed out. The main difference is, as at the moment, our remote audits are free of charge. We do not charge for them. If it is an on-site audit, which is typically just a day, we do have to basically invoice for a 1 day. We'll work with you on that though. Part of talking to myself and my colleagues when you send us the information is we'll review that for you. If we can get to a point where we can do a remote audit, we can close everything out and we're happy with it, we'll certainly aim for that for you. We don't aim to try and just charge you for no reason. We'll try our best to make it a smooth process. Once that audit report has been done by an auditor on the transfer, they'll then submit a report to our internal team which recommends you for a transfer. At this stage, we'll then contact your current certification body. We don't do this until you give us go ahead at that stage. We'll inform them that a transfer is going to take place, and we give them a set period of time to contact us, again, just to let us know if there's any underlying issues that we've not seen. 99% of the time, to be completely honest, they may not even respond. It's very, very rare that anyone comes back and says we can't for whatever reason. Once that's been done and we've given them the time, what will happen is you'll be sent your NQA certificate. Your NQA certificate is going to look similar to the current certificate that you have, but it will have NQA's branding, it'll have your scope on there, it'll still have your UCAS logo, and it'll have everything that you've had mentioned on your current certificate, so you're not missing out. So if you're a multi-site organization and you've got an annex certificate or you've got trading certificates, we would do the same. There's going to be no sort of gap in continuity for you. It's not going to cause you any problems in terms of your clients or your tenders. You will have no period of time where you are not certified. We try and aim just to make it a seamless process where you switch from your current certification body certificate to your NQA one. And that's basically the process. It's a very simple process. We run through it pretty quick for you. We'll work with you if you want a Teams call with leadership teams or members of your team to go through it step by step, because it can be complicated, especially when you get onto multi-site and multi-standard. We're more than happy to do that for you. I touched on it before where I mentioned if you've got an integrated system that's not currently being audited as an integrated system, we'd run through that for you as well. So we can tell you what the transfer would look like, and then we tell you a future pattern with an integrated management system. I'm a big fan of keeping things as simple as possible for everyone. So if you do end up speaking to myself at any point, hopefully if you're in that scenario, we can give you a much cleaner outlook in the future for you. In terms of how long it takes from point of inquiry to the transfer, it's kind of as quick as you need it, really. It's a simple process from our side. In terms of generating an actual quote for you, we can turn that around usually within 24 to 48 hours. And then it's really on your side in terms of how quick we move in terms of the transfer. We do have it where people need urgent transfers, and we can push that through in around less than a week. Once that transfer review day has been done and we get the go-ahead from the auditor, we process the transfer. If there's not such of a rush on there, again, it can take a little bit longer, but it will work with you. It depends really on yourselves with that process. But the key point is if you need it quickly, we can do it quickly for you. In terms of cost, the cost is going to be different for everyone really. And it's because every business is different. What I would say, if you're looking for a rough estimate, is the current audit days that you've got with your current certification body are roughly going to be the same if you move. And that's not just to NQA, that's to any certification body. Our remote days that I mentioned before, which only take a couple of hours to half a day, the remote transfer day, if you've no open non-conformances, they're currently free. We do not charge for that. There's no cost. You will simply be invoiced for your next audit. So if your next audit is a surveillance at the end of 2025 or beginning of 2026, you'd be invoiced for that audit. If you do have open non-conformances or conformances that we need to review on site, it will just be a chargeable day at your day rate. Unfortunately, we don't have any sort of scheme around that at the moment. However, as I said, we'll work with you. We always try and get to that remote day if we can. We'll give you the cost for your next audit, and you'll know the duration of your visit pattern moving forward as well, as I mentioned. So you'll have your 3-year cycle. We don't do any extra fees. There's no hidden fees. There's no extra management fees or logo costs included. Your cost will be your day rate times the amount of days that you're being audited for. And again, as I mentioned, we do not charge travel costs for sites within the UK and Ireland. And that's the same for multi-site organizations as well. So if you've got multiple sites, we don't charge extra for going to different sites. So why should you choose NQA? So hopefully I've given a little bit of information beforehand about NQA and the reasons why you may want to transfer, but a little bit more in general around NQA. We are a UCAS certification body. We have UCAS accreditation for many standards, including sort of your core standards that you come across, 9, 14, 45, and 27,001. We also have 20,001, 2301, which is business continuity as well. We would say we're in the top 3 certification bodies within the UK for carrying out these core standards. Our office is based, it says in London, but we're just north of London in Dunstable. However, we have full coverage all over the UK. We also have coverage as well globally in terms of ISO certification. Coverage in America, in Europe, the Middle East, really anywhere that you can think of, we can facilitate an audit. In terms of in America, we're the #1 certification body in aerospace. We have a certification body that does do other standards as well in America, but aerospace is the key sort of industry for us over there. And in China, it's automotive. So we're really big in China in terms of automotive standards. We can do aerospace and automotive standards within the UK as well. We just find the majority are in our American and Chinese offices. We've been running around 35 years now. We were recently acquired as well by a new parent company called NQA. They're a company that is based in the Netherlands. They are big in the testing and inspection world. We are going to be sort of the UK certification body. It's extremely recent, happened sort of the end of last year. So that you may have seen some updates, slight change to some branding, but that's really exciting. We only think that's going to open up more opportunities for us in terms of a certification body here as well in the UK. We've issued around 60,000 global certificates. I keep harping on this. I'm not going to mention it again, I promise, but we're 100% all-inclusive fees. The reason I say that is because if you look at other certification bodies or current certification bodies you might be with, they'll sometimes even charge travel fees if you're based in the UK. It's dependent on whether they have an auditor in that area. Usually you'll find that sort of Ireland and Scotland. We don't do that. If we have to, for any reason, travel someone up to an auditor, say in Scotland, you still will not be charged travel fees in terms of that. We have 1,000 employees worldwide. As you can see, we've got offices and bases all over the place. I mentioned before, we have a 10-year average customer partnership. So people seem to stay with us and grow with us. We've seen clients go from 1 standard, 1 office to 4 standards, 10 offices. We can easily do that, and we can run through a process of that with you. If anyone's got any questions about that, feel free to pop it in and I can answer them, even though it's not strictly on the topic of transfers. And as I said, we operate all over the world. We have a net promoter score, which is really good. 70 is on the slide. However, the last update when I checked just earlier was 72, which I think is brilliant. You'll find a lot of big companies, not in certification, just in general, don't have that score. We think that's a reflective of the customer service approach that we have. You'll find with NQA that we are big enough to cope with big organizations, but we retain that personal touch. Things like this, our auditors are a good point of continuity for you. So if you come to NQA, you get an auditor who you like, they build a relationship with you. You're not being sort of passed off to a generic customer service line or a customer service number. A lot of our long-standing clients basically know who we are when they speak to us. We also try and be as flexible as possible with you. Doesn't have to be as rigid as some people make out certification. Yes, there are rules that we have to stick to. There is guidance that we have to follow. We are audited by UCAS, so we have to make sure that we're basically evidencing that we do our methods correctly. But at the same time, we try and be as flexible as possible with you. Last minute auditor change, last minute date changes if you need, urgent new standards maybe for tenders. We try and help as much as possible. We've got things like letters of intent that we can send. We can prioritize sort of getting through systems to make sure you've got your certificate ready to go. I said I won't mention it again, but there is a point on the all-inclusive fees there for you. We ensure that auditors are technically competent for industry and certification. I mentioned that before. We have around 90 full-time auditors covering a variety of standards. The aim is to continue to grow that pool as well as we move into 2026. It's quite rare that a certification body will have a pool of auditors that large. A lot of them have been with us a long time as well. We prefer it that way. We prefer that method. I think you're more proud of your work, you take more pride in your work if you're in-house. Again, not to say that we don't use subcontractors, we will do for more obscure standards or maybe in areas that we struggle with. But yeah, we will try and give you, our priority is to give you an NQA auditor if you were to transfer to us, so you can build that relationship and have that point of continuity. All the auditors have their own designated planning person as well, so you find a lot of the issues with customer service comes down to poor planning. Each auditor knows their personal planner, they have a relationship with them, it follows all the way through to you and down. So there should be no hiccups in terms of that for you. We produce technical advice and guidance, so we are a training provider as well. So we have a range of training courses, which we'll show you on the next slide, and verification in terms of sustainability. We're continually upskilling and adding to those to make sure we can provide you with the best possible service. And as I mentioned, we don't want to just be a tick box exercise for you. We want to make sure we're giving you value, you're getting value from us, and it's a very seen as a partnership as we move forward. As mentioned, we do have a range of training courses. They range from e-learning courses for your standards, so 9, 14, 45 onwards, all the way up to IRCA lead auditor courses, if that was of an interest to you, and everything in between. We have courses designed by ourselves, which help with integrated management systems. If you're an internal auditor, we have courses as well. And again, we can do that remote or on site, flexible as you need to be. If you've got a team of people that maybe need a bit of a recap or re-auditing and you want us to come to your location, again, we can do that for you. It's all really on your needs, how that works. And just to touch on sustainability as well with ourselves, because we're big on sustainability. We have a sustainability department. If you go onto our website and you click on our sustainability website, it'll bring you a page, it'll take you to its own designated page. We operate under PAS 2060 currently at the moment, and we have a net zero goal by 2035. We have our sustainability director, Stephen Burt, who is really, really keen on this. He actually sits around the table in terms of how the ISOs for sustainability. So we've got a keen eye on the new ISO standard that's going to be looking to come out probably in 2027, which is the ISO 14060 standard. On the back of that, we have created a service called Net Zero Aligned. This is to help plan for you to get basically down to that net zero. With Stephen being on the table, he's created this in sort of mind for the new standard when it comes out. So the idea would be if you have this in place, when the ISO standard comes out, you can kind of flip straight onto it. It is fairly new. If anyone wants more information around that, please let me know. We can do another Teams call, which is more channeled towards our sustainability, or even get Stephen on a call if that would help. These are some contact details. Again, the slides are going to get sent around, so don't feel like you have to rush to note these down or write them down or take a screenshot. But there's a variety of ways that you can contact us. We have our website. There's loads of support on the website. We've got lots of webinars, YouTubes, blogs. There's a podcast on sustainability if anyone wants some spare time to watch that. And then we've got our social media as well through LinkedIn channels, and obviously good old-fashioned email. We have an In Touch monthly sort of update email. If anyone wants to sign up to that, you can do. That will just give you some updates in terms of what we're doing month on month, whether it's new standards, standards that are coming out that we think might be of interest, new training courses, that sort of thing. And then finally, if anyone wants to reach out to myself directly, those are my contact details. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. As I said, I typically deal with people or businesses, should I say, around about 100 staff or more. If you're on this call and you're not at that headcount, but you'd still like some further advice, please let me know. I'll still help you. And if it comes to putting together an application for you, I'll just pass you on to one of my colleagues who is very experienced and will be able to help you. But that's our webinar today. Thank you for sitting there and sort of listening to me go on. If there's any questions, you want to type them in, I should be able to see them in the box and I can answer them for you. So the question, are India or USA included in the travel? So no, you would be charged outside if you're going to outside of the UK. We do have travel, basically fees. Now there'll be travel expenses and travel days. However, we have resource in India and the USA. So part of what our job would be when we put together the application for you, we check your visit pattern when you would need to potentially go to those sites. If we've got an auditor with the capabilities of that in America or India, then you wouldn't be charged a travel day. So if it's outside of the UK, there's potential to have travel expenses, but we'll always try and resource you an auditor that's already based in that country. Obviously, India and USA are massive compared to the UK, so there still could be travel expenses even if we've got an auditor in there. But it just depends. We'd work that out. We'd look at the location of your site, the location of our auditors, if they've got the capabilities, and let you know. So you would know in advance if there's going to be any sort of travel cost in relation to that. For example, I've just done a tender recently for a multi-site client, which I think was 10 sites and only one was in the UK. We've worked out a visit pattern that involves remote auditing as well to try and reduce any travel costs. Is 50? Yes, we can do 50,001. We have UCAS accreditation to that mark. So yeah, we could do that. Oh, I think I might have missed just on the India USA. There was another line above it. Do your rates for the countries? Oh, right. Yeah. So just to build on that, sorry, Jason, if you've got auditing requirements in other countries, we'll work out sort of travel costs beforehand for you. So basically the simple version is if we've got local resource in there and we can make use of them, would use them, hopefully without travel expenses. If they have to travel for whatever reason, we'll make you aware of that when we do the quote. But when I mention we try and be flexible, we'll look at the big picture. If we can use, say, remote auditing or things like that, we'll do that for you to try and reduce those costs. Oh, there's quite a lot of questions, sorry, and it's only showing me one line at a time. So if you can bear with me. Yes, we do AS 9100. Mark, we can certify to that. We have a designated team that sort of looks after that. So I would be a point of contact, for example, if I was putting an application through for you. But we'd get our other team who are experts to have a look at it first. So yeah, we can do that. How would we deal with certification of group of companies? It kind of depends, Jeff, on the current setup that you've got. So we can do group certificates. So you'll have some companies that have an overarching certificate. So you'll have a head group, and then you would have sort of the entities coming off that, or potentially trading certificates. If you're with a current certification body at the moment, the probably best thing to do would be look at how they've got it set up. We'd then review that and see if we can maybe change that if you needed to. But we can do groups, but there's different methods in terms of how you would audit against that. Typically, you would find you would have your head certificate with your group name on there, and then you'd have annex certificates under that. You could have a certificate that has every group on the top on the head certificate if you needed. It would just be a case of we'd have to look at things like make sure it's a shared management system. Is everyone on the same standard or is it different standards? But we could do that. We could find a solution, Jeff, for you. No travel costs. What about hotel? No, so there's no travel expenses in the UK. So we'll always pick the auditor that's closest geographically to you to try and reduce that. If for any reason we have to travel someone, say from London to, so I'm based in Lancashire, so say London to Lancashire, we wouldn't know. It's on us to plan that to make sure that's correct for you. So for any reason anyone's staying in a hotel or anything like that, it doesn't get passed on to yourself. Yeah, we do PIMS as well. We do those standards, Jeff, that you've mentioned. Thank you for the NPS score. Yeah, we are proud of it. We sort of it's a priority really to keep the customer service high. essentially, certification bodies, your certificate, in my opinion, is kind of, it's the same. The end result is the certificate, no matter who you go to. It's all the things that sort of make up that, which is going to be beneficial to you. And one of the key things is customer service. As I mentioned, I've worked for the certification body. I've worked in the planning team. You can come up against rigid solutions. Ultimately, all that's going to do is annoy people, and you're going to leave. And I think sometimes people don't always see that you're taking people away from their day-to-day jobs to facilitate this audit. And an ISO audit is probably not the only audit that you've got. So yeah, it's just about keeping that in mind and making sure that everyone's flexible and happy. Unfortunately, we don't cover SOC 2. Are we a UCAS certification body for third party? So we have just got our 14064 accreditation from UCAS. It's been ongoing a while. We've been waiting for it. We've got it now. That has come through. I'm not sure if it's been updated on the website yet, but yes, we do have that. For some of the sustainability standards that we don't, we audit them as if they don't. As if we do. So when we get the UCAS accreditation, it's a case of just flipping you onto that UCAS logo. You don't have to then go through stage 1, stage 2, or verification audit again. So yes, there is a question about when can you transfer. So probably should have covered this for you. So you can transfer your certificate at any time. You can transfer it just as you've had a stage 2. You can transfer it just after an audit. You can transfer it just before an audit. The main, not blockers, but the things that you have to consider when you're doing a transfer is the closer you are to your next audit, the less availability a certification body might have. So if your next audit, say if we spoke today and your next audit is due the start of July, we would always check to make sure that we can do that first for you. If your next audit is due sort of 3 months onwards, then there shouldn't be a problem. But from our side, or your side, you can transfer. There's no requirement to wait until you've been audited, or wait till just after an audit, or wait till a recert. It's just mainly making sure that there's enough time for an auditor to be available. Our typical lead time at the moment for core standards is around 3 months, but that's our just typical time that we would say without seeing what your cycle looks like. If you're needing an urgent transfer and the next audit is urgent, we'll try and look at different solutions. You need to be audited every 12 months. However, there are some situations where you can push that to 15. So there's that option as well. We would never proceed with a transfer if it was going to cause you a lapse in continuity or a gap in the certification. But no, you don't have to wait until a certain point. One thing just to consider is if you have an audit booked in with your current certification body, you can't be financially penalized in terms of a contract breakage fee for moving UCAS certification bodies. It's just not allowed. Same for us if anyone moves away. The only thing you need to be aware of is if you have an audit day booked in, just be aware of the cancellation period. So some certification bodies, that'd be 30 days. I think there's one certification body where it's potentially 3 months. So if you transfer away, you may be charged that. It's hard to say, unfortunately, without looking at the terms and conditions, but that would be one of the financial implications. Sorry, Tim, I'm just trying to read your question. Usually 2 days, would that be the case for NQA? Would undertake a recertification audit regardless? It would just be whatever the next audit would be. So if you're due a surveillance, your next audit is a surveillance, we would pick that up in the cycle. So we would do the surveillance audit for you. You don't need to bring a recertification audit forward. Without sidetracking to a different probably topic, the only time you would look to do that is if you were looking at integrating standards potentially. Yep, Mark, we can do AS9100 and OASIS. We have a designated team that looks after that. So if there's any questions or you need any contact about that, still contact myself and we'd get another team involved. If you have a recertification due early next year, would it be better to wait? Not necessarily. It's dependent on you, Jason. So we could probably, off top of my head, I don't think there's any standard that we can't facilitate in that time frame if you had a recert that was due next year, at the start of next year. Again, I don't think there'd be any financial penalty unless for some reason you've got a day booked in and that certification body has in the terms and conditions that they charge cancellation fees, but it's very rare that it's that far in advance. The only time it would be beneficial to stay with your current certification body, but you had a transfer in mind, would just be if we couldn't facilitate the audit. So then there's not a gap. If you're at a point where your next audit is a recert and you don't go ahead with it and you look to transfer, we can't transfer, you'd have to start again. So you'd be better doing the recertification first and then transferring after. But the only real scenario that would happen would be if your recertification was due sort of within a couple of weeks. Again, dependent on the standard though, we still might be able to get it in for you. So it's always worth even just asking the question. We'll have a quick look. We're not sort of a sales team that will try and drag something out for you. If we can do it, we'll go full steam ahead and try and make sure that we can do it that works for you. If we can't, we'll let you know and say, look, you're best off staying. We can revisit it as soon as you've had the audit done. That's great news, Rebecca, on that one. And please give the email for Stephen and his team. Yep, so it's just Stephen, but it's Stephen with a PH, .burt@nqa.com. We still deal with any of the inquiries in terms of the sustainability standards, so I can help you if you needed a quote, or one of my colleagues would. We just find that if you've got any sort of technical questions or in-depth, we'd get Steve on a call because he's our expert. But in terms of if you needed a transfer or any quotes put together, we can do that for you. I think that's all the questions. If there is any more, please, or I've missed them, please just type them, and I can answer them. I'll stay on for sort of a few minutes just in case any come through. If not, thank you very much for joining. I hope you found it worth your time. And if you do need anything, as I said, reach out to myself or the sales team on any of the channels that you've seen, and the slides will be sent out after this as well.